here on The Point of View, we pick the right topic, get the right guests, and ask them relevant questions on issues that matter to you. Tonight's show, however, is different. We're going to do an inquiry into the nature and causes of Ghana's economic failure for 65 years. We are advised to pay attention to things that never change. Whether it's been NDC, MPP, UGCC, CPP, there are some issues with our economy that have been stubbornly, persistently bad. My guest will delve into why our economic policies have not worked, and he has some very interesting solutions to prefer. Stay with us. So tonight we have a very different show for you. We're going to be doing an inquiry into the nature and causes of Ghana's economic failure from 1960 to 2025. That's 65 years of economic failure. But we'll also propose some solutions. Yesterday, Professor Charles Ackah addressed a very nice webinar at ISSER, of which I was a part, and I thought we need to put this on mainstream television. He had almost 90 slides. We don't have time for all the 90 slides, but what I've done is I've invited Prof to walk us through three things, right? Where has Ghana been relative to its peers since 1960? What are the real causes of our economic failure over that period? And what are some key solutions he proposes to move Ghana into a structurally transformed and prosperous society? Professor Charles Ackah, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So you work with ISSER?
Yes.
I said, what are you at ISSER?
Professor of Development Economics.
Okay.
But until 31st July, I've since taken a voluntary retirement.
I see. So
from 1st August.
So you can free your mind. That's why you are here. Okay. Wonderful. So you did this inquiry into why 1960 to 2025?
Well, I wanted to go as far back as I can have data. I wanted to go actually to 1957, independence. But the macro data starts from 1960. So that's where I started from.
And also because we became a republic in 1960, you can say this was the year that we took full charge.
Yes.
The Queen was no longer our sovereign. And is it your argument that since 1960, our economy has been failing and has failed? Is that your argument?
Well, it depends on how you look at it. So if you look at it in a comparative sense with the countries that we began with in 1950, you will see that we are in a relative decline. We are either stagnant in some of the indicators, or we are actually in relative decline, which means that there's a gap. We are not catching up at all.
I see. So I noticed that in your approach, you said you have 65 years of evidence, and you are going for the root causes and not symptoms. Yeah. What do you mean by that?
Yes, because many times when we have problems in Ghana, we blame it on exogenous factors. So it's either COVID, or it's a global food crisis, or war in Ukraine. So it doesn't allow us to look at the endogenous internal structural problems that we have, which have been persistent for over 60 to 70 years.
Our political parties like to compare records over the 4-8-year periods. Is that a useful exercise? Because if you are looking at 65 years of failure, how then should we look at when maybe a party comes and says, I've done 4 years, as we speak, this government says we've stabilized the economy, we are on the path to growth and that type of thing. For an economist like you, you don't take that at face value?
No, because it's short term. Now, economists, you have to pursue particular policies consistently for a long time before you begin to see the results. So in 4-8 years, you are not able to really see the results, but also because we are looking at comparing ourselves, NDC versus MPP, you normally do the things that are not long-term in nature. So these are short-term issues, and they don't fix structural issues. They're usually dealing with the symptoms.
So you came up with what you call 7 real deficits, and then you deal with 5 stylized facts. But you group those 7 real deficits under 4 main rubrics. Can you just explain what you mean? You are talking about, what do you mean by that?
Yes. So because what I wanted to try to correct is that over time, our main focus has been on fiscal deficit, budget deficit. So whenever our ministers of finance are coming, they are looking at how to balance the budget, how to reduce the deficit. And now we are talking about surplus, which means our government is not spending much, or is actually being prudent.
So government books are looking good?
Are looking good. But as far as I'm concerned, that's not the real deficit. The real deficit are the ones that really affect the structure of the economy and affect living standards of people. And that's why I group them into that various 7 deficits.
So you call the first group decades of disappointingly low and unsustained growth. And the deficit there is what you call what? High, inclusive, and sustainable growth.
Yes. So here I'm looking at GDP, which is a measure of per capita GDP. And for a country to develop, even though GDP is not a perfect measure, you cannot develop without growing your income or your output. And for you to grow, to move from poor to middle income, upper middle income, you need a certain minimum level of growth, and then it has to be sustained, and that growth has to be inclusive, meaning it's including everybody or all sectors. And what we find in Ghana usually is the growth has been low on average, about 1.15%, and usually it's coming from 1 or 2 sectors, mainly gold or oil, so it's not inclusive.
So growth simplicity has not worked.
Has not done
Then you
well.
also talk about the structure of the economy moving in the wrong direction. What deficit are you tracking there?
So here I'm looking at how have we diversified the economy so that all sectors are contributing. And the key sector that creates job employment is agriculture and agro-processing to manufacturing.
Yeah.
Our economy is driven mainly by service sector and sometimes from the natural resources, gold at the moment, or oil. So that we have not been able to structure the economy. Agriculture has failed. Manufacturing is in a deindustrialization state.
And then you have something you call the unemployment in the midst of plenty.
Oh, yes. Unemployment is high. Even if you accept the measure of unemployment, I don't accept it. The way it's measured, it underestimates unemployment in Africa because they ask you whether you have done any job for pay in the last 7 days. So but even if you take that, it's still high. About 13% is high, but it's more pronounced among the youth. It's about 33%. So 1 out of every 3 Ghanaian youth is jobless. And for that will not be acceptable in America.
So for you, if we are tracking deficits, we shouldn't just use fiscal deficit. We should use these 7. Yeah. Your last 4 deficits, you grouped it under chronic underinvestment in the economy. What are those deficits you talk about?
That's very serious. Because when a country does not invest sufficiently, especially the public sector, and also the private sector follows the public sector. When the public sector fails to invest, it's not able to crowd in the private sector. And when a country does not invest in critical infrastructure or in the health or in education, then you have deficit in that area. So we have deficit in health, human capital, deficit in education, human capital. We have deficit on roads everywhere you pass.
That's infrastructure deficit.
Infrastructure. And we have deficit in even food security. Basic foods are unavailable and they're very expensive. So we have not invested much in agriculture, and that's also.
And we also don't have enough capital.
We don't have enough.
So we have a capital deficit, human deficit, infrastructure deficit. Yes. So these are the 7 more critical deficits.
Yes.
Interesting.
That's what we need to confirm.
Now, then you also say there are some 5 facts that also underscore our economic failure. Yeah. What are those facts?
So those facts also, I call them stylized facts because they are indisputable.
Okay.
And they are, whether it's MPP or NDC, over the last 65 years, it's been chronically established. And when you look at the data, and the first one is inflation. Okay. So we are among one of the economies with high inflation over 65 years, despite all that the central bank has been doing.
So we are a high inflation economy.
We are a high inflation economy, and that's this fact. And it's stubborn. It's not. We are finding
it's a stubborn problem.
Yeah. Then in terms of our trade, we are not trading prosperously. So we are still exporting the same primary commodity. It was gold, timber, bauxite, manganese, now oil, now gold. Okay, so that you don't gain because these are volatile. The prices change all the time, and depending on what is happening in the world market, we don't gain much. And then we have the issue about commodity dependent, which I've talked about. Then agriculture, it's clear that agriculture is underperforming, and manufacturing cannot perform except agri takes off. So because agriculture provides incomes, which will create demand for manufactured goods, agriculture also provides raw materials for manufacture. So when agriculture fails, manufacturing firms have to import their raw materials, and they're more expensive. And we are in a exchange rate constrained economy, so it makes manufacturing non-competitive. So manufacturing and agriculture actually they are as a husband and wife, they're bedfellows. Once agri fails, manufacturing cannot take off. So the two of them are in backward state. Actually, most factories are underperforming or utilize their capacity, or they're folded up. And then the last one has to be the
So these are hard facts about Ghana for the past 65 years. High levels of inflation. Our trade is not good. We don't add value to our trade. Commodity, so for example, to speak gold, we're exporting raw gold, even though they try to refine. Most of what we export is raw.
Yeah.
And then you have agric, and then the issue of deindustrialization. Okay, for all these things you've said, you showed some graphs, which I want you to comment on. So what are you checking here, and where is Ghana, how is Ghana performing here?
Yeah, so here I'm trying to, compare almost all countries. I just couldn't have enough space. And I took the average per capita GDP over the last 65 years. And you average it per annum. So this is a very good indicator for performance. And when you see that over the last 65 years, Ghana has managed just about 1.15% per annum growth per capita. So GDP is not doing well. Okay, for you to grow at that level, if you compare to other countries, they are doing 6.6%, about 5%, 4%, 3%. You need that to be able to move your economy within the next 20, 25 years onto a high income.
So Ghana is very low here.
It's very low. It's just, it's just about 1.15%.
Okay.
So just about 1% per year on per capita basis. Even though there have been years where we grew at 11%, and on average, we have been doing just about 1% over 65 years. With that kind of growth, it will take you a generation, like 70 years before you move from a lower middle income country to an upper middle income country.
So this is a much clearer graph where you pick a few
some
countries.
selected, yes.
China so how many years are we looking at? For 65
years.
China's average growth is 6.6.
Yes.
Over the 65
Yes.
years. Korea is what, 5.8?
5.8.
Singapore 4.7.
Botswana.
So over 60 years, Botswana has a growth rate similar to Singapore.
Yes, 4.77, because they are making very good use of their natural resource.
Really?
Yeah.
And Hong Kong, so Botswana has actually grown faster than Hong Kong.
Yes.
In the past 60 years.
Yes, 65 years.
When you come to Africa, Ghana is 1.15. Egypt is better, Uganda better, Lesotho better, Gabon better, Kenya.
Of course, the African average is just about 0.92%. So we are an African star.
So we do better than African average?
On average, yeah.
So the African average is around Nigeria.
It's around Nigeria.
Between Nigeria and Cameroon.
Yeah.
And we are 1.15, but not too high up.
Not too high. As compared to the Asian tigers, the average is 5.32%.
So the best African country is below the average Asian tigers, which is Botswana. So growth has been a problem. And then what is this?
Oh, here I try to put values to this in terms of per capita. So if you look at current international dollar, GDP per capita in Ghana by 2024 was just about $8,000.
So Ghana is the orange line.
That's the orange line.
At the bottom.
At the bottom. So we are doing about $8,000 in PPP terms.
Wow.
Compared to the lower middle income countries, which are our peers, they are doing 10,000. And then if you compare that to China, is around 60. That's about $38,000 per person. And then you compare that to Korea. Korea is about $61,000 per
So
Korean.
we are even below the lower middle income average.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah. So China is also below Korea and Malaysia.
And Malaysia.
So Korea is the star here
Korea is
when
the
it comes
star
to
here.
growth, because the population is much lower.
Yes.
I see. So per capita income looks at population as well. And then what is this?
So here I look at 1960. So at 1960, GDP per capita in Ghana was higher than Korea.
Really?
Yes, $176 US dollars per Ghanaian. And Korea was $158.
And Malaysia was $245.
Malaysia was $245.
So 1960, when Nkrumah became president and head of state, we had a higher...
Than Korea. We're better than Korea on per capita terms.
Now, 40 years later, we saw what happened. Malaysia jumped to about 12,000. Wow.
And Ghana just managed to move from 176 to 253.
Are you serious?
Yes, and Korea moved to 4,000.
So it means the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, we couldn't even increase our per capita income for 4 decades.
Yes.
And Korea, Malaysia jumped from 245 to 12,000.
To 12,000.
Hey.
And Korea moved to 4,000.
And
mainly because you know what happened in Ghana in the 70s. After Nkrumah was overthrown, we have a lot of instability politically all the way to...
But this is 4 decades. So
4 decades, yeah.
70s, 80s, and 90s.
Yes.
Together, we didn't grow to even 500.
Yeah, it was not until the 1992 that we began to... we had the structural adjustment program, economic reform program in the 80s. Wow. We did very terrible, sometimes negative growth.
Wow.
And then it's only under President Kufuor around
early
2000 that we began to do something serious. Okay.
By the way, from 2000 to 2020, we had increased our GDP by times 10.
Yeah.
But look at that. Korea has jumped from 4,000 to 32,000.
Yes.
They've even outpaced Malaysia.
Malaysia, yeah.
What happened there for them to grow so quickly?
Yes, industrial policy, very strategic investment in manufacturing, semiconductors, innovations, research and development. So it was strategic. Malaysia.
So Malaysia has
become
stagnated.
Yeah.
So viewers, look at this. Ghana 176, 1960, 253 to 2000. So in 20 years times 10.
Yeah.
Korea from 158 to 4,000 to 32,000. Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. Let's go on. What else do you show? What's this?
Well, this GDP per person. So this look at productivity. How productive is the Ghanaian? Because productivity is what generates.
So who is the blue? The green line is Korea.
So the green line is Korea. So that's GDP per person. If you divide the total GDP per person employed, so this takes only the employed people that are contributing.
The amount they contribute to the world is 98,000.
98,000 per one Korean employed.
Where's Ghana?
Ghana is, again, I mean, you're always at the bottom, so you see the same orange. 19,000. So that's per annum. In a year, if you take 2025, those Ghanaians that are employed, everyone contributed
about the average Korean produces 5 times what the Ghanaian produces. Yes. 20 times 5 is 100. Yeah. So we are 1/5 as productive as people.
We are not very productive.
As a people.
Yeah.
And this is also labor productivity.
So
same thing.
You divide it per hour worked. So that one is per the GDP per total number of employed. This is the GDP per total number of hours worked.
So we are not very productive.
So no,
as
we
a
still, for each hour, we produce just $10. And compared to Korea, a Korean produces about $53 an hour.
But it looks like Korea is even better than China. China is below
China,
Malaysia.
Because the population is
high.
Is huge and they're work.
What is this?
This is looking at competitiveness rankings. So the World Economic Forum did a competitive ranking. This is before COVID. So you can say this is, it doesn't, you can't blame COVID on this, and you will see what's happened.
And what is this?
This is vulnerable employment. It's just looking at the kind of jobs that are in Ghana. Mm-hmm. So about 60% of all employment in Ghana, they are vulnerable. Okay, so there's informal employment. So we are not generally sustainable, decent jobs.
So this one, being higher is not good.
Yeah, so being higher is not good.
So our employment in the early 90s was vulnerable about 85.
Yeah.
And it's come down to
60%.
Meanwhile, our competitors
are doing around 20%.
So very few people are in vulnerable employment compared to us. Yeah. I see. What else do you have here?
This manufacturing value added. This is looking at how sophisticated we are in our economy in terms of moving things to the value chain through the processing.
Manufacturing value added.
Yeah. So it tells you that of all the production we have in Ghana, just about an average of about 10% goes through manufacturing. Okay, and if compared that to about 25% for the other countries.
So we are not adding anything in our manufacturing
value.
This one is productive capacity.
So it shows how productive our economy is and the capacity to produce.
So on all indicators, compared to our comparator countries,
yes.
But how did you choose Korea, China, Malaysia, and this type of countries?
Yeah, well, the country actually I was interested in was Malaysia, mainly because we had the same population size, and then we had independence in the same year. We had independence in March. They had independence in August 1957, and we had almost the same initial conditions. So I thought that I don't want to compare to US or Japan or
so Malaysia is better.
It's a much better. Korea also, I added Korea because I wanted to look at the East Asian tigers, if we could learn something. And Korea also coming because at independence we're even better than them. Mauritius is an African star, so I included Mauritius. So what is Mauritius doing that we could learn from? And of course, China is now the world star that everybody is looking at. So what has made China to move in a short time to become a competitor to the US and even overtaking US? So this is what I try to do.
So this is the point of view. Tonight's show is a bit different. We have gone back to the lecture theatre. Professor Charles Ackah is with ISSER, and his presentation today is on why Ghana's economy has been failing since 1960. And he says these are stylized facts. MPP, NDC, PPP, we are all to be blamed. When we come back, he'll give us the 8 real dimensions or causes of our economic stagnation. And then he has fiscal and monetary solutions he will try and prefer for us to make sense of where we are. Stay with us. Welcome back. So tonight is an inquiry into Ghana's economy 65 years. My guest, Professor Charles Ackah, says it's been 65 years of economic failure. He's established that fact with the first part, where he's taken us through the hard numbers to show how poorly we're performing against our comparators, whether it's Malaysia, Singapore, South Korea, Mauritius, or even Botswana. Now, Prof, you say you have 8 main causes. Seven causes of economic failure. Yeah. And the first one is what you call dysfunctional moral and ethical system. So it's not even economics yet.
No, not yet.
Can you explain this?
Yeah, it's important because even though as an economist, I take a political economic view to the analysis. Mm-hmm. And the first problem that we find in a country, or what make countries rise or fall normally, is whether we have a system of integrity, ethics, and morality, righteousness, mm-hmm. because it forms the foundation. The Bible says, if the foundations be destroyed, what shall the righteous do? Mm-hmm. So when you build a nation on wickedness, crime, you heard a report of Ghana's Ascavs yesterday, bribery, injustice.
70% of people said they had been asked for a bribe, yeah. Or 67% or so.
So with that, you cannot develop, even with the right policies. You cannot be properly executed. So I look first at about the moral and ethical.
So you think morality and ethics is the foundation of all development?
It is. For almost every country. America, the great countries, you need, and for that you need usually a strong religion to back it. So whether it's Christian religion, because I'm Christian, or it's Saudi Arabia, you will find Islam, or it's China, you will have whether it's Hindu or it's
Confucianism.
But you need
some ethical soft dimension to development.
Yes. So where a nation backslide into wickedness and immorality, or we throw away godliness and the fear of God, that country, it's just a matter of time, will begin to decline, because you're going to have corruption and all kinds of greed and injustice, and you can't have property rights and protections.
So then you also deal with what you call dysfunctional political system?
Yes, because the moral system, or the ethical ecology, mm-hmm. produces the human beings that are going to be in the civil service, or the president, or the politicians, okay. or the parliamentarians, or the judges. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's very important. So because that is also important, because they are the one to design policy and execute it. So we have also a political system in Ghana that I don't think is functioning. It's not producing the
What is wrong with our political system?
Well, again, if you just take what we have now, it's not based on meritocracy. It's winner takes all. We are not picking. Unlike if a World Cup is going to play football, you are looking at the best Ghanaian players. You can pick them from Manchester, Real Madrid. Are they Ghanaian? Okay, fine. We put them there. When it comes to our politics, it's not like that. So even the best people don't get the most competent people are not appointed to places. It's those that can pay, or those that
who are close to the pot of soup.
Yeah, so that's holding us back, actually.
So, and you're talking about our political system.
Yeah, the political system.
And then there's also what you call dysfunctional governance. You separate political system from governance system. Yeah. Why do you do this?
Yeah, because the governance system, I'm looking more about the civil service, the public services, and because the public service is also coming from the political system. So we now come to, in terms of governance, even if you forget about MPP and DC, we're not talking about getting passport, licensing, trying to get a permit to build a house. How long does it take? That's what South Korea was talking about now, bribery. Okay, talking about issues of sanitation, flooding, Bola, if you pass through Adenta someplace, you will see rubbish there for 2 weeks, nobody. So who is responsible? Local government is failing. So so those kind of things now are also holding the economy back.
So our economic failure is moral and ethical, political and leadership failures,
yes.
All feeding to poor economic management.
Yes.
Wow. And this has cut across the 6 decades?
Yes, across the 65 years.
Because we've done military rule. Achampa Wonte Unigoff, he didn't come. We've done parliamentary system under Buzia. I think even under Liman, I'm not sure. We tried something. So irrespective of the brand of system, it's not working.
Well, some have worked better than others, but overall, the totality of that, we are still stagnant and underperforming. So it means that we're not doing something right. And I did them like that so that we can look at what to fix. So when we come to the moral ethical system, what do we need to do? Okay, and how does our education system, our religious system contribute to this? when we come to the political system, we need to look at whether democracy is working, and if it's not working, is it what is making it not? How can we fix it because it's working somewhere else? Some people have talked about capitalism, socialism. If we come to the governance system, if we are looking for results, what must we do? How did they do it in Malaysia? How did they do it in Korea? How did they do it in Rwanda? Okay, and now we are talking
There's a
about
feeling. There's a feeling that democracy, in the way we interpret it in Africa or in Ghana, is not a tool for economic transformation. And the examples are South Korea was not really a democracy for many years. Singapore is not the type of democracy we think it is. Malaysia, even though it is supposedly, even there are issues. China, all right? And they're saying that when people are not well educated and when people are very poor, democracy may not be the electoral democracy of our kind. I think the only exception I see is Botswana and Mauritius. So do they have a point when they say that when you want to do democracy, it's not going to work for us?
Well, I think it's not a panacea for development. So we have seen, even from Rwanda, and even from what is seen happening just in Burkina Faso, that it's not just democracy. It may be a necessary condition.
Burkina Faso is a dysfunctional country. I don't think there's anything going on that we should be happy with.
Well, if you talk to the people, that they may say
no, Burkina Faso about 2/3 of the country is not even within the control of the government. There's a lot of issues there. Yeah. But you go ahead. Burkina Faso, I take exception to.
Yeah. So basically, I think Professor Nesaitia did a presentation at UN Wider to show that democracy was failing Africa. So it's good to have some stability and to have opportunity to elect our leaders, but I don't think that from this analysis is not the sufficient condition for development. And we have had some of the good times we had was under military rule, actually. And Achampong did some very fantastic things that if we followed them today, we would have been better than we are. Even former President Jerry Rawlings started very well, and he did some good things that if we followed. But we also saw that sometimes democracy worked, because in fact, one of the best results we've had was between 2000 and 2008, President Kufuor. So that's democracy working. So it's more about leadership more than the system.
The system.
Yeah.
But your 4 final points, you use bold points: macroeconomic mismanagement, failure to diversify the economy, chronic public and private underinvestment, and then underdeveloped financial system. So these are the economic points.
These are the economic points. That's where my expertise is. So that's what I wanted to focus. But I couldn't have just started from number 4 because to not give us a proper background to what is happening.
So when you talk about macro mismanagement, what are you talking about?
Well, I'm focusing mainly on fiscal policy and monetary policy. So they've not managed to manage the economy very well to make us competitive and prosperous. So that's where I look at that. I pick each one of them and look at, for example, if you look at the results from the Global Economic Competitiveness Report, it shows that the performance of our macroeconomic management, when they look at 141 countries, we ranked 132nd. So we were better only...
When was this done?
This was done in 2019, so just before COVID.
So before the crisis?
Before the crisis. So even before the crisis, they've been doing this every year. Okay, the recent one was last year, 2025. We have always performed just around 132nd out of 141 countries. Okay, beating only 9 countries. Now, that shows that we should not be proud or complacent that we have had very good managers. And this is recent, and this goes back to history. So if you look at some of the issues they talked about, is that we have not been able to create jobs. We have not been able to diversify the economy. We have not even been able to fight inflation sufficiently. Okay, even with the inflation we are now, we have always been double digit for most of the time. Average inflation in Ghana over the last 65 years has been around 24%.
So we are a high inflation country.
So,
and you blame macro policy for that?
Oh yes, it's mainly macro policy, because they are not external factors.
Is it fiscal or monetary?
It's both.
Together?
It's both of them together. It's both of them together.
So what is wrong with our fiscal policy? If you look at the past 60 years, give me the top two challenges with our fiscal policy, or the top two things you disagree with in our fiscal policy, which has led us to where we are?
Yeah, so it has to do with the role of government.
Uh-huh.
The role of government in fiscal policy is to raise taxes and to spend. So it's about government moving the economy towards the potential output. Now, when government is not able to raise sufficient tax revenue, which is in our case, tax to GDP is just around 12, 13%, as compared to other nations where they are doing 25%, 40%, 50%. It means that government is having a financial constraint, capital constraint. It cannot spend adequately into the economy. That government already will be forced to borrow. Okay. And then in terms of borrowing, it's better to borrow within from the financial system. But our government sometimes now like to borrow externally. And that's what drove us to the IMF 17 times, because many times we have overborrowed in foreign currency and we are not able to pay. So so the first issue is the ability and the capacity and effectiveness of a government to bring everybody into the tax bracket. We have failed. Okay, so when you have about 80% of your economy in informal sector, and you have not devised any clever way of taxing those people that are selling, and that's where the money is. Okay, I did a small analysis. If you go to Legon, University of Ghana, night market, that's not informal.
Nobody pays taxes there.
Yeah, these are people that are there. So, and I don't think they would want to pay tax. My barber, I ask him, I will go to the barber, you pay 50 cedis for a haircut. He's there, he's right there in Adenta. He has been there for 20 years. Nobody taxes him. So if you say the economy is informal, it's a lazy excuse not to collect taxes when you need to collect property taxes. The properties are there. They are numbered, whether it's East Legon or it's Adenta or it's Medina. So if we don't hold local governments responsible, GRA responsible to collect taxes, then we are going to do something wrong, because
so
that will
our
limit
fiscal policy has not worked.
It's not really working efficiently because we are not collecting sufficient revenue. And then the other thing has to do with spending. Even when you have borrowed or you have collected tax revenue, how do you invest that in the economy to make sure that the economy becomes competitive and efficient? Most of the time it's consumption. We are paying salaries and then we do little things here, free SHS here, and then it's finished. We are not investing critically in agriculture. So that's why we still import a lot of food. And there are people that want to do poultry. Okay, but they need a government in everywhere. The last time I heard Brazil has more cows than human beings. Okay, because there's a policy to invest in agriculture. In Europe, they're investing in agriculture. So here we have also believed that the leaner your government, in terms of the little amount you spend, or fiscal deficit if it's zero balance, or if it's surplus, then the Minister of Finance is doing well. And that is very wrong.
But they say fiscal discipline and macro stability is the foundation for everything. So it may be necessary but insufficient.
It's necessary for insufficient, but also stability normally depends on where you are in the economy. Okay, so if you have some investment in treasury bills, you have some good income, you want to check inflation, you want to make sure that the exchange rate is stable. But those that don't have anything, they're not thinking about stability. They're thinking about survival. They're thinking about takeoff. So if you say because you want to stabilize the economy, you don't invest, people can't go to hospital. People who don't have water. Okay, somebody was telling me there's no water in some parts of Ackah. Okay, then you are not dealing with the economy fair.
But don't you think we need to balance the need for government spending and investment on efficiency? I think today there was a news card I saw from Citi where they said the world IMF had said this Minister of Finance had stopped over 1,800 programs or so. I'm trying to find the story, but I think there was a photo of Atif Forsen and the IMF guy, and they said he had managed to. I'll find it. Managed to cut a number of wasteful. Let me just get. Ghana cancels 1,800 public projects after spending review.
Yeah.
According to the IMF.
Yeah, it's part of the morality issues I'm talking about. So our major problem is not only corruption; it's also inefficiency in government spending.
So you're saying that when the finance minister does fiscal discipline and doesn't spend, he is praised, and you think some of that can be misguided.
Yeah.
But he's also saying, I'm cutting wasteful expenditure so we can free up money for more useful things.
Yeah, sure. So, but then it will show in the expenditure. If you have the graph, you will see the expenditure. So you can, of course, cut waste and then reallocate resources. It's not to cut waste to balance the budget. So then it basically you are not spending.
So, okay, I get your point. So we shouldn't focus on the paper achievement of balancing the budget.
No.
The freed money should be used for something more useful.
Because you have unemployment. You have youth that have finished school 7 years at home, including nurses, doctors. I've talked to them. I've graduates that I've trained, first-class students, 5 years after national service, they're at home. So you don't save the money. You invest to make sure that there are jobs to employ those people. So that's how. So the issue is not about balance. There's not many countries in the world that are running surplus. I have the statistics. If you look at it, you can see that we are an outlier, even in Africa. So a poor country that look at our roads, whether you're going to Kumasi, I just spoke to a judge that said that he was going to Kumasi. He spent 12 hours. I spent 12 hours to move from Afram Plains to come to Accra. The road network is terrible. You have to wait for the ferry for about 6 hours before you can cross between Adoso and Echiamanfu. So such, chronic underdeveloped infrastructure, you need to fix it. So if you have money, instead of putting it in reserves, to build reserves to, I don't know, whether 15 months of import cover, is to put it in the economy. If you have money to run a surplus, unless you just want to please some IMF, it must be invested in health sector so that this no bed syndrome will be resolved. Is to build your infrastructure, soft and hard. That's what makes countries competitive. Is to fix the agriculture sector to make sure that we don't import tomatoes and onion. Farmers need input to be able to work. So I don't believe in the discipline as if to say, okay, well, we balance the budget, we are not spending money. It doesn't, because we need aggregate demand or effective demand is supposed to be boosted up to be able to reduce unemployment. There will be no unemployment reduction if demand is not going up. And what causes demand is investment and then expenditure. And if one is not expending, then we have a problem.
This is the point of view. Tonight, we are back in the classroom. Professor Charles Ackah says we need better economic management. For the past 65 years, our economic policies have failed us. When he comes back, he will prove this is point about fiscal policy. Then he also talk about monetary policy. Stay with us. Still on the point of view tonight, we are asking how on earth, after 65 years of economic data, Ghana has still not come out of the woods yet. Don't forget, next year, Ghana will be 70. My guest, Professor Charles Ackah, says there are at least 7 root causes of our economic underdevelopment. He discusses the whole issue of ethical and the moral leadership. He discusses political systems. He discusses governance system. But I'm talking about macroeconomic management, poor macro management. It is your contention that our obsession with fiscal discipline may be a problem, and you wanted to show a graph to prove this. So I want you to explain this chart. Are you saying that the government doesn't spend enough, or that it doesn't spend on the right things? What are you really saying here?
Both. So the government doesn't spend enough, and you can see that in the government expenditure, but also is not spending in the right places, even with the little. And this graph is very critical because it measures the level of government investment, what we normally call capital expenditure. Okay, and it's always a corporate whenever we have a crisis or whenever government, because those takes long time, and that's what developed the country, that's what makes the country productive, and that's what brings the country's competitiveness. And this is normally in the road sector, the bridges, you are talking about railway, or the hard capital investment. And it's measured globally by the IMF and even the World Bank.
But you notice from your graph that as of 1970, we were relatively the same with Malaysia and Korea.
Yes.
Then they both took off after the 70s,
yes.
And we've remained the same.
We've remained the same, stagnant for 65 years. So we are not investing. Actually, if you look at it, it has fallen gradually.
It's gone down.
It's gone down. Okay. On per capita basis. So how much government spends to make Ghanaians productive? So if you are working in CTFM or ChannelOne, how much they spend to make your work efficient? The building, the air conditions, the laptops, the tables. These are the things you need to be productive. The government is refusing to spend in the critical area that will make Ghanaians productive. That's why people spend hours in traffic, hours to travel. People don't, because we are not investing in the critical enablers of development. And whilst you see the other countries, by 1970, they have all started leaving us behind. They are now spending about $2,000 per person as compared to 52. Ours is $52 per person.
So government doesn't spend enough.
And is not spending in capital expenditure. Even the one is spending is
What about
consumption.
private investment?
And private investment is related to two issues.
So that's the okay. Show us that chart.
That's the next one.
Yeah, private. Not this one. The next one.
Yeah, the next one.
This one.
So here you see again. By 1960, we were quite similar. Okay, and we are still remain stagnant. It's gone up a little to $530 per year, because the private sector is always following the government sector. When the government invests in the economy, it makes the economy competitive. It makes the returns on capital investment good for private sector. So it crowds in the private sector investment. It doesn't crowd out. It crowds in the private sector. When the government doesn't invest, it doesn't make the country competitive.
So this one depends on government.
It depends
Even
on
though
government.
it's not government you are measuring.
Yeah, so you see that it's also remains stagnant. It's tracking the private sector. It's higher than the private sector, than the public sector. It's $530 per annum, and the government sector is spending $52 per annum.
Serious?
Okay, yes. Only $52 goes to capital expenditure every year per Ghanaian. Okay,
So the private sector even
spends more.
Invests more.
Invest more. Okay, but they're also constrained by the monetary policy, because they borrow to invest. So when your monetary policy is tight and they are raising the policy rate and they're only mopping up liquidity, the private sector, it becomes expensive for them to invest. So that's so this graph is driven by both fiscal policy and monetary policy that's kept this at this low level. And you see the other countries going ahead.
You argue that a gentleman called Lerner postulates that government fiscal policy should be governed by a number of rules. And those rules means that government should be bold to spend, a bit like Keynes, your Lord Keynes.
Yeah.
Like government should spend to stimulate an economy. That's what you think.
Yes. And that's not I'm not the only person that thinks like that. Actually, if you look at this report, this was written by Sir William Beveridge, Full Employment in a Free Society, in 1944, when they wanted to solve unemployment issues in the US, in the UK. This was a very important report. And basically, it has established that the most potent way of dealing with unemployment is to boost expenditure and to grow effective demand, to create the ability for people to buy and the ability for people to produce. Okay, so when people are not able to produce, or the goods produced, people don't have effective money income to buy it, production is not encouraged, and people will be poor, and they cannot hire labor. Okay, so basically, if the government refuses to spend into the economy, and because it's not spending, the private sector is also not able to spend, the economy is already constrained. And once it's constrained, it cannot expand. That's your GDP per capita will continue to be low. And if that is low, you have idle resources. Land, arable land cannot be cultivated. People cannot be employed. Industries cannot expand to have economies of scale. They will only have micro enterprises in the economy.
So
and that's
if today is the finance minister's birthday, if he's listening to you, what is your advice to him? Because he's the one who controls the purse.
Yes, my advice is for him to increase public expenditure. And he should not be afraid, because public expenditure crowds in the proper public expenditure, productive public expenditure, particularly in the capital sector. It crowds in the private sector. Now the question is, where do we get the finance? That's always been the question. So the relevant question economists should ask, or government should ask, is this worth doing? The first question is, where do we get the money from? That's not the question. If you're a family, you don't first solve your problem with whether you have money or not. Is your child sick? Must he go to hospital? Yeah, it's necessary. Where do I get money to take this child to? I need to give my children good education. Is good education good? He has to go to school. How do we finance that? Now we're always putting the money question ahead. We don't have money. Okay, we don't want to run budget deficit. We want to please the IMF. So then already that's a bad question.
If you have a deficit, you can also get good credit. It affects your credit rating, and you borrow at a higher rate. So the idea of having a good paper in terms of your paper numbers, it helps you get good capital, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's if you are foreign capital dependent. Okay.
But is there enough capital in Ghana?
Oh, yeah, there is, because capital can also be created. The capital is also created. It's a part of
how do you create capital in Ghana?
So that's where the difference. That's where the Lerner idea comes in. We should not treat the government as if it's an individual. An individual like you and me, we cut our coat according to our size or according to our cloth, because we cannot steal, and then we only spend how much salary we have. And even where we have to invest, or we have to build, or we have to do some critical things, we can borrow from the financial sector if the returns will help us to repay. That's why people have mortgages and people are able to borrow to invest in farm and agriculture. So when we come to a sovereign state, like a nation cannot run out of money from its own currency. It doesn't make sense. There's no nation that has a central bank, sovereign central bank, that say, I don't have money to do bridge or to build hospital. When COVID came, it showed everywhere in the world that people found money where they need to find money. They now call it, quantitative easing, unorthodox economics. And this is how all the nations grew before they now begin to refine economics. There's no single
So you're
nation.
saying that if the government doesn't have money, it should print it?
It can, whether you use printing or not, it has to create it. And these days, you don't even need print. It's computer entry. In the central bank, they can just credit the Minister of Finance account if we need to fix the roads.
But your policemen will come around and say you are creating money and that it's inflationary. That's what they'll tell you.
Again, that's wrong. Okay, it's wrong. Because, again, it's an economic theory that is defeated long ago. It's Milton Friedman that taught us that inflation
is
everywhere
monetary fund.
It's not true.
It's not true?
Okay, it's not true. It's proven.
In fact, when we went to SS, they said inflation is more money chasing fewer goods.
Yeah, it's not true.
It's not true?
It's not true. If you want to fix inflation, basically there's a constraint between demand and supply. So you either decide to fix the money issue because people have money and they're chasing fewer goods, so you want to withdraw the money from them. The alternative is to provide the goods. If you want to provide the goods, then you have to spend to provide the goods. So, for example, if inflation in Africa, Ghana, is driven mainly by food.
Are you saying that the 54% inflation we faced in 2022, excess supply of money was not a driver?
Was not a driver.
So-called,
no, it was not.
Broad money supply.
It wasn't, because you saw the World Bank report. I think I quoted the World Bank. The World Bank studied, it would have been good to see their own conclusion, because we wrongly attributed it to money supply. It wasn't. That was not what the World Bank said. Yeah, let me read what the World Bank said. The World Bank said in 2023, it said in a recent, theoretically, inflation can benefit poverty reduction in the short term. When it is
guys, this is slide 45.
Yeah.
Slide 45, if you are looking for it. So read it for me.
It says expansionary monetary policy can stimulate economic growth. That's my argument. Expansionary monetary policy, expansionary fiscal policy can increase demand, leading to higher output, and it can also bring inflation. So it depends on that. Now, but he now said, this is what we call demand pull inflation, when demand is what is causing the inflation. But rising demand can result in higher prices, leading to increased demand for labor and a reduction in unemployment. We have not seen that in Ghana. We have not seen a reduction in unemployment. We have not seen increased demand in labor during COVID time. So basically, it is not.
So are you saying that our historically high inflation has not been as a result of excess money supply?
No, it's mainly cost. Because we are not productive. We are not producing now. If you are buying a crate of egg now at 75 cedis or 60 cedis, it's not because we are spending, Bank of Ghana is spending money. It's just because Doma people are not able to produce sufficiently.
But they showed us the BOG's balance sheet within the period of the crisis that they were forced to spend excess. And that was part of the drivers. So whilst there was some of the inflation which was imported because of the currency depreciation, there was a view which was accepted by most economists that the central bank at the time spent too much. And that contributed, so it was both monetary pressure and then the FX pressure, in addition to the cost of goods because of the world crisis.
No, listen to the report. It said, look at the World Bank. The World Bank said, this is unlikely to have occurred in Ghana. Inflation in Ghana has been mainly driven by high food and energy prices, leading to increased poverty.
This is World Bank 20, what year is this?
2023. The report
in the heat of the crisis?
In the heat of the crisis. That's what they did on Ghana.
Inflation in Ghana has mainly been driven by high food and energy prices, leading to increased poverty. Yes. This type of inflation is called cost-push inflation and unlikely to increase employment.
Yes.
So the fear that central bank printing money is inflationary is misplaced?
It's misplaced, totally misplaced. Of course.
You're sure about this?
Yeah, and I'm sure.
So you are postulating what is called a MMT, right? Modern monetary theory of economics.
Yes.
That's what you are postulating.
Well, I don't want to call it that, but
that's what it's called. It's MMT. we want to understand where it's coming from.
Yeah. But basically, I want you to know that the role of a central bank, even the Bank of Ghana, if you look at 1957, what established the Bank of Ghana? It was not inflation targeting. Okay. The Bank of Ghana was set up. It is essential to our own independence that we have a government-owned bank, that the central bank follows a policy designed to secure our economic independence and to further a general development of the country. Every central bank was set up to help develop the economy. It's not just to be fighting
so
inflation.
they can allocate money to stimulate.
I'm telling you,
economic activity.
Every progressive bank does it. That's why China Central Bank does it. It's done in Malaysia. In fact, Malaysia's central bank lends directly to the private sector. They don't need to even pass it to another bank.
So you think our central banks have been very conservative?
Very conservative. Too conservative. Too conservative.
Or
So-
are they? That's quite interesting. So you think the central bank should directly pump money into the economy?
They can. Of course, when they thought that they needed a hospital, they built a hospital. So they can invest in agriculture. They can invest in farm. Okay. They can invest in the micro sector. They can invest in the bridge. There's nothing wrong about that. It's done.
But does that not require stronger independence? Because the problem with our countries has been the political leadership has spent in unproductive sectors. So if a central bank is to be proactively spending to stimulate the economy, it must have a system of measuring the effect of the money it puts out there. And those expenditures must not be based on what the political leadership, because political leadership may not have the same discipline of a central bank. So it's a bit dangerous to say to a central bank that print money and spend it because they interpret their mandate for stable prices and stable exchange rates. You get it? So it's going to be very difficult for Johnson and Siama to say, you know what, we're going to invest 2 billion in agriculture, rice. The opposition will kill him.
That's why we need a bipartisan discussion on this. You see, one of the things I feel we should change is our economic thinking. The thought is wrong. And sometimes I don't blame the central bank. We ourselves, we will roast such a central bank governor because the opposition is quickly, when in the midst of the crisis.
The IMF too will kill him. So
Yeah.
opposition IMF and then Standards and Poor's and Moody's, the whole system will say this central bank is crazy.
Listen to the United Nations. UNCTAD said central banks of all persuasions, for example, the Bank of England, the United States Federal Reserve.
Is there any developing country that does this?
Because they have been told by the IMF that is wrong.
Did South Korea do this?
South Korea did it. Look at Bank of France, Bank of Japan, South Korea, almost Malaysia. They
are all OECD now, except Malaysia.
Yeah, but they started doing a long time. Malaysia, during the Asian crisis, the midst of the Asian crisis, the IMF went there. They rejected it because the constraints they were bringing to the economy. They didn't. So Malaysia has not gone to the IMF for 65 years. We have gone there 17 times because they have a central bank.
Wow. So ATU should spend.
So what should constrain us is dollars because we can't print dollars. But the government should not run out of cedis, especially when it needs it for capital expenditure. We shouldn't.
And it should not weaken the value of the cedi.
No, it should not, because it depends on how it's spent. So the question should be, how do we create the fiscal space? And then once it's created, what should we use it to do? Okay, and we need to now that's why we need to strengthen the national development policy. So when we have NDPC, then we can now agree, okay, this is what needs to be done.
I'm going to pair you with neoliberal economists one of these days to debate this, because I think it really requires a more rigorous debate than a host asking a couple of questions. So if you commit to come, I will bring, I'll look for a proper neoliberal economist.
No problem.
And we'll discuss the role of central banks and finance ministers. But thank you. Professor Ackah is with ISSER. He's on sabbatical?
No, I'm on voluntary retirement.
Voluntary retirement. So he says now he'll free his mind. So now nobody can tell him what to say. I hope you've learned something. We've been looking at 65 years of failed economic policies and some solutions. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.